So let me explain the ingredients. So this is the flour, wheat flour, and I think it's around like 10 point some percentage, like in protein content. And this is water. It's water, right? And this is salt, currency. So salt and currency, like each like 1% of the weight of flour, and then this is 36% hydration ratio, 36% to the weight of flour. So salt and currency are going to be dissolved in the water. So you have to count them as 2% of the hydration ratio. So like the actual amount of water is just 34%. Okay, so let's start. First with the mixing. So this is a noodle making machine that we have. This is the smallest one. Actually, this is a CE certified version, and it has 10 kilograms mixer. 10 kilograms mixer and means that like you can mix up to 10 kilograms of solid ingredients like flour and other things. And on top of that, you're adding liquid. So at maximum, you can do up to like 14 kilograms of dough. And yes, and then but like minimum batch is 4 kilograms. So we are doing 4 this class. And so she's dissolving the currency and salt to the water to make this liquid. And you may be able to see some small holes in this lid. And we want to add this liquid directly onto the this mixer lid, so that this liquid is dripped through the holes to be added to the flour inside the mixer. And because we want to add liquid a little by little to the flour to have like good hydration. So if you like add like all the liquid at once, then it's we don't have like we don't be able to like do good hydration with the dough. So that's why we need to add the liquid little by little. And the total mixing time is like 10 minutes, but like we can wait for 10 minutes just looking at it. So she prepared the dough. Remember the resting process? This is the first resting process. So we put the dough in a plastic bag and then let it sit for an hour at room temperature. So the first thing we do like after this is to make rough sheet of dough. So rough sheet of dough. So this machine has one set of rollers. So like there are 2 rollers, and then you can adjust the roller gap. And so the dough is going through the roller gap to be sort of like sheeted. So this crumbles dough like turns into sheet dough, and you can adjust the roller gap with this handle. So first initial roller gap, like we said, is like 1.5 millimeter. And this is a 36% hydration ratio. So the dough crumbles, like the size of the crumbles is not that big. So that's why we set the roller gap like 1.5 millimeter. But like if you're doing like 40% hydration ratio, the crumbles are bigger. So we need to widen the roller gap to let the dough through the roller gap. and it's going like really slow first, because we want to apply like really good pressure on the dough, and to kind of develop the gluten structure inside dough. So we need to like keep feeding it, and then so she put the roll of like dough like against the roller that's rotating, and so the dough like kind of winds by itself automatically. So we talked about the noodle texture, and this hydration ratio, medium hydration ratio, gives somewhat firm, but like chewy at the same time. And then this hydration ratio usually do it for such ramen noodles as like kind of Tokyo style, like shoyu ramen, um, like Hokkaido, Sapporo ramen, like miso ramen, usually curly. Maybe like basically it's standard ramen, standard hydration ratio. The last class we did the tonkotsu ramen noodles, and then that was categorized as low hydration ratio noodles, and the hydration ratio is between like 25% to like 29%, and the dough is like crumbles like a lot smaller, and the roller gap we set is 1 millimeter, so we need to like pass this like dough through a lot smaller clearance to make a sheet of dough. So after 4 minutes, we add the rest of the water and mix it for 6 more minutes. So the total mixing time is 10 minutes. So after what we call like rough forming, so this dough is like still pretty fragile. It's easy to break. So we need to make it firm, stronger. So what we do is that like we separate it into two sheets, two separate sheets, right? And then roughly half, and then combine them through the roller gap into one. So like we are, compounding the two separate sheets into one to make it firm. And that was 1.5 millimeter in thickness, and then each sheet is 1.5 millimeter in thickness. And so the dough thickness that's going through the roller right now is supposed to be 3 millimeter, 1.5 plus 1.5, the 3 millimeter equivalent of dough is going through. And but we want to, we don't want to like thin it like drastically, because like that would like damage the gluten structure inside dough. So we want to like gradually thin it. So this is the rule, like thinning it, and how much we should thin it at the time, right? Is that like it's 70%, 70%. So that's 3 millimeter equivalent of dough like going through. So 3 times 70%, like 0.7, is 2.1. So like to make it simple, like we set the roller gap to 2.0 millimeter. So every time like we do every round of like rolling thinning, we reduce the roller gap by 70% to sort of like to protect the gluten structure. And again, like we are going slow to apply good pressure in the dough. And after the first combining process, I think dough is like pretty firm, but like we want to make sure to and then do it one more time, one more combining process. So the each dough sheet now is like should be 2 millimeter in thickness, and so we are separating it into two and combine them. And so 2 plus 2, 4, 4 times 0.7, 70%, 2.8. But you want to make it simple, so we rounded up to 3 millimeter. So the dough that's coming out has actually very smooth texture, smooth surface after combining process. And then after the second combining process, because because it's a relatively high hydration ratio, like kind of wet, sticky. So to keep it like from sticking, you want to dust it. You want to dust it, and so it's automatic duster that this machine has, and you can control the amount of dusting, and for high hydration ratio noodles, like you should dust more. But like for low hydration ratio, like tonkotsu noodles that we did in last class, you don't probably even have to dust it because it's dry enough. So after the second combined process, so like all we had to do is just thin it to the final thickness. So that was 3 millimeter that is dough just went through, and then so 3 times 0.7, 2.1, but I make it simple, 2.0. And from this point on, we can go faster because the gluten structure is complete. So we can speed up the rolling, sheeting, and that was 2 millimeter, and we're going to thin it again, and 2 times 0.7, that's 1.4, but want to make it 1.5. But like before we do that, we want to measure the actual thickness. That's 2.8, 2.8. And so after it's going through like 2 millimeter roller gap, like it's actually there's like 0.8 millimeter difference between the actual thickness and the roller gap, and it's because it's dough, and dough like is actually 2 millimeter, but like after it's gone through the roller gap, the dough expands back. So there's always difference between the actual thickness dough and a roller gap we set. So that's why before we cut it to reach the final the right size in terms like what I mean by right size is that thickness and width. So width is determined by the cutter we use. The thickness is determined by this the roller gap, and the actual thickness expands, like it's always bigger than the roller gap, and we don't know how much the difference is. So we need to measure the thickness before we cut it to get the right size. And then noodle size is very important when it comes to like noodle texture. You need to have like right noodle size, thickness, and width to have like ideal noodle texture. And so after it's going from 1.5, it's 2.1, 2.2-ish. And so the difference is 0.6, 0.7. And the final thickness we want is 1.7. So we set the roller gap to 1.1 so that we expect the actual thickness to expand back by 1.6 millimeter. So that final thickness should be 1.7 millimeter. And then this is the kind of cutter we use, and this is this kind of like paper shredder, and like the dough goes through like to the middle, and then comes out as noodle strands. So the width of noodle is determined by the cutter. It's fixed. The thickness is determined by the roller gap. So we set the conveyor belt and set the cutter, and we're going to cut it. And we want to dust them. That's the noodles when they come out. So we set the duster there. Okay, let's start cutting. And this machine can automatically portion it. And how it portions it is that like length of noodle. So the longer the length, the bigger the portion. Shorter length, like smaller portion. And Madzemen noodles typically, because the soup is very little. I mean, really small amount. So the shops usually like kind of compensate that with the bigger portion of noodles. So typically, the Madzemen dish has bigger serving portion, and maybe like 150 grams, like 160 grams, and I mean some crazy shops like have like 200 grams per portion to start with. That's a regular size, and then that's before cooked, like so that's weight of like fresh noodles, and then after it's cooked, it's like 1.5, 1.6 times bigger in like the weight. So it's a lot of noodles actually when you eat at like Madzemen shop. So it's very easy to make Madzemen noodles on this machine, and then it's very easy to portion it. All right, so that's how Madzemen noodles are made from scratch, and so that's that. And then this was just 2 kilograms batch. So like we just use like 2 kilograms of flour just for sort of like a demonstration purpose. And so like out of like 2 kilograms of flour with the like 36% of like liquid, we get maybe like 18, like 16 portions, like 18 portions servings noodles. Because like Madzemen noodles are like usually the serving size is bigger than regular ramen noodles. So if you in this machine, you can make up to like maybe like 14 kilograms dough. So out of 14 kilograms dough, if the serving size is 150 or something, then you probably get like around like 90 servings or something out of 10 kilograms of flour. So now we have our chief instructor of the school, Mr. Ikeda, and he has background in Chinese cuisine. It's very similar to ramen, and we're lucky to have him like kind of to teach us a few examples of a Madzemen dishes. So make a mistake there. So I'm basically like translating what he says.
はい。じゃあ、2種類の混ぜ麺を今から作っていきます。
So we're gonna make like 2 types of Madzemen today.
一つは日本でいう一般的な混ぜ麺ですね。
So one of them is it's like kind of typical Madzemen that we do, what we have in Japan.
でもう一つが、動物系を全く使わないヴィーガン用ということで、野菜を中心とした混ぜ麺を作っています。
And another type is like the one that doesn't use like any types of like animal types of ingredients. Like that's like kind of like vegan, kind of vegetarian type. So let's see the ingredients. Okay, so first let me explain the noodles.
今から麺を茹でていくんですが、茹でた後ですね、工程として2つのパターンがあります。
So when we like cook noodles, there are 2 patterns of like kind of processes what we do.
茹でた後ですね、洗わずに茹でたものをそのままタレと和える形と、茹でた後に水でしっかり締めてからですね、もう一度温め直すという、2つのパターンがあります。
So one pattern is that like we cook the noodles and then but we don't wash it. We don't wash it. Like we just drench the noodles in the sauce. Like another pattern is like we cook the noodles and then like wash them to get rid of starch and then warm the noodles and then cover them with the sauce.
で洗わずにそのままあえた方が、表面のぬめりとかが入りますので、ちょっとソースにとろみがついて、独特のもちもち感ですね、が出ます。
So like if you don't do if you do the first pattern, like without washing noodles, because it has like some starch that's still remaining in the noodles. The starch like kind of being sticky, kind of like mixed with the like sauce, and then kind of the entire sauce would be like kind of sticky, so like kind of bringing out like a bit of like kind of umami to the whole dish.
洗う場合はですね、表面のぬめりが落ちて、で、麺が締まるので、ちょっともちもち感、プリプリ感ですね、しっかりと考えると、あとは麺の、表面のぬめりが取れるので、比較的さらっと食べやすい仕上がりになります。
So if you go with the like second pattern, like washing the noodles, so we getting rid of like all the starch, so it gives like kind of like firmer texture, and then it has the like sort of like the whole dish should be like has like kind of clean taste and flavor.
今日は持ち帰りを想定して作りますので、洗った方が麺質がしっかりしますので、今日は茹でた後にしっかり洗っていきます。
So yeah, we were like making all these 2 dishes like for takeout today, so we are washing the noodles. So we cook them for 2 minutes. So while the noodles are being cooked, let me explain the toppings. Scallions, Chinese chives. So that's pork minced meat, like that's cooked, seasoned, nori, and then that's fish powder, and that's raw egg, and then we just use the yolk.
できるだけすぐ食べてもらうというのを想定していますので、生卵を使用していますが、時間がかかる場合ですね、生卵は衛生的な問題もありますので、使わない方がいいです。
So we are kind of thinking of like customers like eating it fast, like but like for takeout, fresh egg is not really a good choice. So you might want to just skip it.
あとですね、こちらにお皿と、あとタレですね。醤油ベースになります。
So that's take a container, and then we have a container for like tare. That's based in like a shoyu-based tare.
すぐ召し上がっていただくのであれば、さっき麺とタレと一緒に合わせてしまってから盛り付けていただいても結構です。
And so like if you kind of if you expect the customers to like eat it like right away, then you may want to cover the noodles with tare before you serve them to customers.
こちらの香味油ですね。
And that's flavored oil.
今回はサラダ油やごま油、ニンニクとかネギとか香りをつけてます。
And then the flavored oils are made like using vegetable oil like sesame oil, and then using like that's garlic and other things like infused.
はい、では麺が茹で上がりました。
So noodles are cooked, and I'm washing it. So after we wash it, right, we want to warm the noodles. And after we wash it, we want to mix it like with in the sauce, and then the oil, and then top it. So in this case, we'll add tare too, like mixing the tare too. And then warming the noodles, reheating it. So we are sort of like just increasing temperature of noodles. So like we don't warm it like for a long time. Just and then make sure to drain the water as much as you can. Otherwise, that's going to dilute the sauce. And just start welling the sauce. First nori. That's Chinese chai. And green onions. And then ground pork. And fish powder on the side. Then we'll put the yolk. In the center. So this is how you put together one like traditional maze soba, and then so this is a typical like sort of like Taiwan maze soba that we talked about in the lecture. So it's very easy and it's very great. I mean, it's very good for takeout. So next, so the next one we're going to use this green colored noodles. The cooking time is the same, 2 minutes. So after cooking, we're going to wash them as well. Let me explain the ingredients, the toppings.
今回は野菜の
And for this one,
こちらすべて野菜でできています。こちらですね、トマト、
tomato
紫の玉ねぎで、
and the onions.
こちらはごぼうを薄くスライスして揚げたものです。
And that's lotus root, like kind of thinly sliced and then fried.
これはパプリカですね。
And then yellow pepper.
これは貝割れ大根。
And then that's beef sprouts.
でこちらはですね、こちらの肉と同じような形で模して作ってるんですけども、こちらは豆腐を使って、作ったそぼろです。
So that's the crumbled like tofu kind of stir fried tofu. That's kind of in substitute for the ground pork.
この麺を仕上げた後、一度簡単な作り方をご紹介します。
And I'm going to explain how we made it later after we do this dish.
はい。で、こちらもですね、同じようにタレですね。で、コンビは同じものを作る。こちら動物系のものを使用しておりませんので、同じものを使って仕上げています。
So the same tare and then like same flavored oil because like we didn't use any of the animal type ingredients in the flavor oil. So
では、ボウルの方にですね、同じようにコンビを入れていきます。
so putting the flavor oil in the bowl and
タレ
then
は合わせずそのまま手伝いで
tare because it's take out, so we're just gonna leave it.
仕上がります。洗います。
So the noodles is done and I'm gonna wash it. And so like we got rid of like the starch well and then we need to strain it as much as you can and then sorry, like so you just warm it to raise the temperature of the noodle and then you need to strain it as much as we can. And put the noodles in the bowl and stir it well so that noodles are coated with the flavored oil. So put it in the container. So let's start topping. Waiting. Tomatoes. And tofu on the side. Bean sprouts. Your onions. Just fruits. Yellow bell pepper. Okay, so that's how it's together. Okay, so I want to explain how this tofu topping is made. Tofu, this is a hard tofu. And then I actually like freeze it, froze it, and then defrost it. And then you see this surface of the inside the tofu, like it has like kind of texture like this. After freezing and defrosting it, the texture will be like kind of like meat. And then I want to squeeze the water out as much as we can. And after that, I want to stir fry it. So we don't have to put oil in it like when you stir fry it. And then we want to make him brown. So after we stir fry it like for a while, and then kind of entire the tofu be like kind of turning brown. Then we gonna start like seasoning it. Just taking a while to like kind of stir fry like so. But the sauce that we use for this is this. And this sauce is like made like based on like this of the sauce is the miso. So the ground pork topping we had is like I actually seasoned it like with the shoyu and sake, mirin, and sugar. But like it's very difficult like to bring out like kind of like meat like taste and flavor from tofu. So that's why I use the miso. And see some of the tofu is kind of popping. And I still like need like keep like stir frying them like until the tofu like turning more brown. So you should stir fry them well to harden them to have like meat-like texture. So if you can't, the stir frying is if the stir frying is not enough, then the texture will be like kind of tofu-like texture. So you want to make sure each crumbles of the tofu is stir fried well. Okay, so let's start seasoning it. Yeah, so that's how it's done. So, question.
1個だけですけど。
どういう、このいろんな材料を使ったらもっと麺についてなんですけど、麺についてなんですけど、
はい、
どんな材料を使ったらもっともちもちになって、特にまあそのしなやかというか、
はい、
なりますか。
そうですね、もちもち感を出そうと思って加水率を上げるのと、あとは、タンパク質の低い粉ですね、を選んでいただいた方が比較的もち感は出やすい。
Yeah, so Mr. Geta is answered. So like question is like what ingredients are used to make the noodles more chewy and especially elastic? And Mr. Geta says that like that you should use like flour with the like lower protein, and you should increase the amount of liquid. So like making higher hydration.